Welcome back to A.R.'s Tales, aka the A.R.T podcast. I am A.R. Mirabal, and today I am joined by Brittany Leonard. I was about to mess it up again. Author of the coming soon, Life of a Shadow, which is a graphic novel, elemental. It has a whole bunch of different elements that we want to get into, but it's mainly young adult fantasy, right?
That's my one coming out in a couple years, actually. So the one coming out soon is a children's book.
Oh,
Yeah.
please. Oh, and before we get into that, where can people find you, links, anything like that, anything you want to promote for the people listening on?
I would check out Instagram at author Brittany Leonard. Then I also have a website, authorbrittanyleonard.com. Pretty simple to remember. Yeah, those are probably the best ways to connect with me.
Awesome. Well, diving right into it, before I ask about specific works that you're doing, I usually like to ask where you started writing to begin with. Where did you get the inspiration? And also, you do a lot of your own artwork as well. So I'm assuming they were kind of, you know, muddled in together.
Yeah. I've always enjoyed writing and reading, like ever since I was a kid. The artwork, not so much. Like I didn't even take art in high school. It was never something that really appealed to me too much. But a few years ago, I tore my ACL and I was needing knee surgery. So I was going to be off work for 3 months. And I was really nervous about how I could spend my time productively and just like to enjoy myself because I didn't really have too many hobbies at the time. And my partner suggested I either write a book or learn to draw. So I just decided to do both. And I've kind of been self training myself in the illustration piece. And I've come a long way in the last few years. And then the writing piece it comes easier to me.
Well, that's so all of this is a recent development. So how does that feel coming into it? Like specifically that a lot of people I talk to have been doing it since like, oh, since I was 8, I want to be an author. And I was like, oh wow, that's I do not feel the same way.
Yeah. I definitely get imposter syndrome. Like, who am I to think that I can write a book, or who am I to think that I can illustrate a book with no experience? But
I
I
feel
think
that.
now that I have this children's book done, now I feel more confident in myself. I see that I can do it, and it doesn't seem like I'm just like stumbling my way through quite so much.
God, why does that feeling happen, huh? Because I really get imposter syndrome frequently. It happens every other week where you feel like a great week that's like, oh, this is awesome. That's how it's meant to be. In the week right after, it's like, oh, what am I doing though? Who told
Yeah,
me this is what I should be doing?
yeah, for sure. Comes in ebbs and flows.
Well, diving right into it, talk to me a little bit about the children's book.
So it started off with my dad. So he told me this story about why we have shadows when I was a kid, because I asked him what shadows were, why we had them. And then I guess he remembered the story that he told me. And so a few times he had told his friends this story. And his friends said to him, you have to write a book out of that. Like, it's a beautiful story. It moves people to tears, like, especially women, right? So a lot of people said, you have to publish that. And then one summer I was out visiting them. They're in Ontario and I'm in British Columbia. And I was working on my graphic novel and they saw my illustrations. And then they realized that they could write this book and they have an illustrator at their fingertips, right? Otherwise, they would have had to hire someone. And I don't know how much that costs, but I imagine it's not cheap considering the number of hours I've put into it. So yeah, it just kind of happened by happenstance. And I helped them kind of put it together and do the whole publishing process.
That's awesome. And where can people find it right now?
It's on Amazon, all different in different countries. So it's on for pre-order right now. You can pre-order the ebook, and the paperback copy will come out April 6th.
Okay. So then the graphic novel that you're working on, the elemental one, what is the name of that work?
That one's Element, the graphic novel. So that one I just got it back from beta readers this past week. So I'm going to be just doing a little bit of editing and then sending it off to an editor in a couple weeks.
Okay, so that's where I got a little bit of the mix up. I thought when I said the life of a shadow, and you said that that was coming out in a couple years, and I'm like, oh my god, I had the pre-order page up. What am I? I had like
Oh no, so the
a
opposite. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so then yeah, urge people, Amazon, the life of a shadow, check it out. Well worth it. Now, can you go a little bit more into the idea of the well, without spoiling too much, like the idea that your dad gave you, the story that your dad gave you?
Yeah. So my dad always had health issues when I was growing up. So I think when I asked him, like he's still alive today, but I mean, he was given a short lifespan when I was a kid. So I think part of it was I was always a little bit worried that when I was older, he might not be around. And so his answer about why we have shadows was that they're made up of our parents, so that even if our parents aren't by our side, we have our shadow there and they can keep us company in the meantime. So in the story, the girl, like it follows her from when she's born until she has kids of her own. So in it, she faces different challenges that everybody faces. Like first day of school, you're nervous. It's okay. Your shadow's there with you, right? And then you can see the other kids and they all have their shadows too. So they're all accompanied by some love as well. And then like facing bullies, you can stand up for yourself and make your parents proud because they want you to be happy. And yeah, so it just follows like different life circumstances people would go through, and just reminding them that they have a shadow. And then as well, there's even a couple of nighttime scenes as well. So I know when there's a full moon out, I love going outside and checking out all the shadows on the ground, because like it's amazing to me that at night we can still see shadows. So that made its way into the book as well.
My God, that is a beautiful thought. Man, all of your parents' friends and all the people that said that you should have made that into a book were without a doubt on the money. My God. Wow.
Thank you.
And your dad just made it up on the spot. It wasn't like a thing that he heard from his wow.
Yeah, he's a really good storyteller.
Yeah, sounds like
Yeah.
it. That's beautiful.
Hmm.
Are there any other stories that kind of stuck with you as like growing up that he would just tell you random things? Like he would point to the moon and be like, "Oh, that's made out of Gruyere."
Not specific stories, but definitely like him and I spent a lot of time together. Like I would read to him like every night and he would fall asleep in my bed and I would just keep reading to him. And yeah, we did a lot of things together. Like I remember like going out and looking up at the different planets and things like that. He would show me like where Mars was and things like that. Um, yeah, and he's a great storyteller and a very social person. So he was always, yeah, definitely a good dad to have around growing up.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, sounds awesome. How did do you think that inspired your love of reading?
Yeah, I think so. I was always a reader growing up. Um, I remember reading the Harry Potter books with my mom too and my sister, and we would read through those together. So it was just, yeah, I think it was just something we kind of worked into our family routine of reading every night before bed, sort of thing. So I hope this book can bring more families together and read before bed, because I don't know how often that happens anymore.
God, yeah, especially I have like a niece it's like at that age that you really start realizing like, yeah, that should be a thing we do a little more often, especially when like there's Coco Melon and like all the crazy things that are on Netflix now.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, and another cool thing about the book is at the end of the story, I have a series of pictures on how to build your own shadows with your hands, so
What?
that kids can follow around and do that with their whatever light they have in their room. And that was pretty fun trying to figure out how to like make simple hand shadow puppets and capture it on camera too.
Wow, I mean, I almost wanted to ask you to show it, but I don't want, that should be a selling point, that's why a reason to pick up the book. Cause my God, that sounds beautiful. I want to get that for my niece. Need to pick up a copy myself.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear it.
Now, kind of going with the whole reading aspect, what do you think were like a lot of your main like inspirations growing up from the like reading wise, or like the first time that you really felt like you were really impacted and moved by literature?
Ooh. Yeah, I don't know. It was just like always something I enjoyed. Like I remember like even in the summers, like I would just have books and books and books, and I would just lay outside in the grass and read. um and I remember, yeah, even like high school, like walking to and from school with a book in my hand. Like I'm a little bit of a nerd that way, but at the same time I just own it. Like I'm a teacher now as well, so um I try to inspire my students to it's okay if you want to read. Like I try to make it a cool thing.
That's awesome. And I actually did read a little bit on your blog that you kind of have like a guide for how teachers can turn your book into a kind of a classroom thing. That's awesome.
Yeah. So that's what I'm planning for the graphic novel. Is I want to be able to use it with my middle school students or high school students. And this children's book, The Life of a Shadow, I'm at a high school, so it's harder to teach it to kids. But I
Mm.
have sent out a number of copies, and I've had some teachers give really awesome feedback. Like a grade 1 teacher, she sent me like what some of her students said, and they're just like, oh, like just positive messages about the lessons they see in the book. And then she said too that it falls in really well with the grade 1 science curriculum because it talks about opaque and transparent and translucent, so when they're doing shadows they can play with those different
Oh,
aspects of that.
damn, you got some good marketing things in there. Damn. It's really good. Actually, talking a little bit about that, how do you feel about the whole marketing aspect? Because that's the one thing that I hate the most of this whole indie thing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I have no experience marketing. I've taken 0 classes, so it's really just fumbling my way through. And yeah, like you can just read and research, and like I follow some people on Instagram that teach authors how to market, so that's handy. But yeah, marketing is definitely my least favorite part of the publishing process, and it never ends. Like it's a full-time job. The only time I'm on my phone is to be on Instagram and things like that, trying to market. So
Like to the point, not that the community isn't like well worth it and like very supportive and all that, but
mhm.
it really does get like hella annoying. Like just I'm at the very thin point of my book coming out in like a month and just like getting all the, hammers, like everything done. And I feel like I'm
Yeah,
not on Instagram like at all. And like, just like that feeling of like, oh, now I'm letting the marketing slip by trying to get the book. It's like a catch 22. You can't win.
I know.
There's
Yeah,
there's three things in the air, but you only got two hands.
yeah, exactly. Oh, that's a good way to put it.
uh, Now, kind of going with that, what do you have like a saga planned out for the life of a shadow? I mean, it sounds like too good of an idea to not keep going with forever.
At this point, no, but I mean, if it's received really well and people want to see another book, then possibly. I don't know. Yeah.
Man, I just love that idea. There's certain ideas that just really sound like they're just like derivative of other ideas they put together, but that one just sounds so in its own little lake, just floating. Like I've never heard of anything derivative. Like, damn, I almost wish I heard of it.
Thank you. That's lovely feedback.
Well, and the cover art itself, could you go a little bit into the production of the actual book, like how the editing went? You already talked a little bit of how the editing went, but the actual production of the cover, the getting on Amazon, all the little fin points.
Yeah. So the cover, I actually have my first cover here. I just used the Amazon, like they have a cover creator tool on their website when you're uploading your manuscript. But it's very basic. So I had gone with that one and it was fine. So I just chose a piece of artwork from the book itself. But you can't really play with the fonts too much. So it was just like one size font on the front. So usually your title would be bigger, right? And like
Mm.
bolder and whatnot. And then the back, same thing. Like it looked like, a person who's making their first book made it. So thankfully, thanks to Instagram, I've met a cover designer who I'm now friends with. And we go back and forth all the time in Messenger. So she saw that and she was like, can I please help you with your cover? So her and I had a call one day and I was sharing my screen with her and she helped me fix it up. And I like it a lot better now. So we actually have like a big title with like a nice font that you would see in a children's book, with our names are smaller, and then the back, same thing. Like it just looks far more like a book that would be in a store.
Beautiful.
So yeah, so I'm really grateful she was able to help me with that. And then yeah, the formatting, getting it up on Amazon, it looks super simple when you first log in. It's like, oh, put in your title and who it's by and your description and this and that. A good tool I found was Readsy. It's a website that they help authors and writers. So they have like blogs and newsletters and things like that. And then they have a free ebook you can download for marketing. And in there, it had suggestions on how to figure out which categories to put for your Amazon. So you put like children's book, but then you can do subcategories. So it shows you like how to find the best one for your book. So that was helpful. But my biggest challenge was just getting the book to look properly when it prints. So I imagine like if you're doing a novel, it's probably not quite as difficult because you have just the text in the middle with a border around it. But with a book, with an illustrated book, you need to make sure it goes right to the edges and that there's no white space. So it was like really difficult. It was just trial and error. It was just hours and hours of like uploading the PDF. Doesn't work. Okay, let me readjust it a couple millimeters and try it again. So that was probably one of the most time consuming things too. So I would say if anyone is facing that, just accept it's going to take a few hours and just try to be patient with it.
Damn it. I'm about to get to that point. So I think a couple days ago, what am I saying? I think it was a couple days ago, I finished all the graphics that are going to be in my book because I was thinking of putting like fake advertisements and like fake blueprints for the technology that I use in the book. It's a sci-fi.
Oh, cool.
So I made all these graphics that go in between. They're like 30 altogether, and I just finished it, and I thought that was the end of the game. But of course, formatting. It's always something. It's always something.
Yeah.
Right when you think you're about to be done.
Mm-hmm. Amazon does have a number or like a website too that you can say, hey, I need help, and they'll call you within like minutes of you putting your information in. So that's helpful if you get stuck.
Talking about Amazon, how do you feel about like that industry? Like, what do you feel is the future of the industry? You know, I mean, like just thinking how 5 years ago, not even more like 10 years ago, the traditional was basically the route. Like the only way you can get a published was by another group of adults being like, yeah, this is cool. But now you, a singular adult, can just go write your own copyright page, which was a whole lawyer. That was a whole, job thing. Like, a lawyer hired for this thing to write these copyrights. And now you can just do it yourself. Like, how do you think the future's going to be?
Yeah, I can just see it getting more and more independent like that. I do like I would prefer to be able to support like smaller businesses, but in terms of just like the ease of it, and they've put a lot of effort into trying to make it possible for people to self-publish. So yeah, I can see more and more people doing that. But then the thing is, then the market gets more and more saturated with books too, right? Which is awesome for readers, but makes it more difficult to market your book and get it into people's hands. So
Man, how do you feel about that, about the whole oversaturation? Like, I think this year alone, there's like 40 million books on pre-order, like that are gonna be out on Amazon, all self-published.
Wow.
That's outrageous.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Like, what? How are you supposed to compete?
Exactly.
Which brings the whole marketing scheme back into it. Like, Jesus, how are you, Well, I guess like the give and to of this whole like indie marketing, it's such an awesome feeling to like have control over your own artwork and like your own writing and your whole like everything, even like the editing and the formatting. That's all on you, and that's completely awesome. But then there's certain parts that you just like hate. And there's certain people that love the marketing, hate the art. You know what I mean? It goes back and forth.
Yeah.
Now, can you kind of run me through how this idea of the element graphic novel came through? Because I'm a huge graphic novel. When I read that, I kind of lost my mind a little.
Oh, awesome. Cool. So yeah, it started with me basically wanting a new hobby. And then that night I was trying to think of what I could do. And I was watching Inception. Um, and just the world building in that was just awesome. I was like, it would be so cool to like write a book and be able to build a world like they do in those dreams. So then I started thinking about like my own values, and the environment is really important to me. So I thought of the idea of element, so air, water, fire, and earth, and having like 4 different dimensions in this world. Each one is one of those elements. So that's how it started. And then I had to like come up with a plot because I just had a location. So I started developing the characters a little bit. So again, this was just when I was first learning how to draw. So I would just like draw faces and characters and copy faces and characters from different graphic novels and stuff and try to figure out my own style. And then I started slowly kind of just like puzzle piece by puzzle piece, the ideas would come to me. So my main character started developing, which she has like anxiety and panic attacks, which mental health is also important to me. And like I said, I want to use this book in a classroom in high school. So that felt like a good theme to go with as well to talk about with students. And then, yeah, it just kind of slowly came together and start forming its way into a plot. There were times where I would just have to write, and it was okay if I wasn't going to keep the ideas I was writing just because I needed to get something down. So I'm at the point now where it's going to be three books, or 3 volumes, I guess. I'm debating if the first book I'll release them in issues or if I'll just do like a volume. But yeah, so I'm done basically writing the first book, and then there'll be 2 more, which I have like more or less the idea in mind of how it's going to go. Yeah.
Well, that's exciting, huh? The first book is done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I still have to illustrate it because I've started illustrating it, but I knew it would probably change after going to the editor, so I'm kind of on pause right now. But it was really great to like publish this children's book, because now as I go to start illustrating my graphic novel, I've already learned some things about the process, right? Like even, before you even start drawing on your page, you need to make sure you have the dots per inch figured out and like set to the right setting, so that when it's printed, it doesn't get like stretched really weird or squished really weird.
No,
And
I always thought DPI just like the highest the better. No.
yeah, so but the program I use, it's like automatically at like 200 or something, and they say it needs to be 300 or more for printing.
Okay.
So thankfully some of these pictures in this book were not at 300, but they're printing fine, so that's okay. And then also the color scheme, the program I'm using, which is Procreate, it's automatically in RGB, but when you print, especially if it's dark, so those nighttime photos, they came out basically just black. So you have to use CMYK color scheme. So it like kind of flattens the color so that it just comes out like in one picture, as opposed to like layering on the colors on top of each other and becoming really dark.
Huh. Man, I'm downloading all of this because I want to start doing I want to start paneling my first graphic novel like in a month, actually.
Cool.
Yeah, like right after I finish this book and get like everything writing.
Yeah.
So the first book, so you have like the storyboard for it done?
So I have the script for it done. So that was another weird thing because I've never written a script before. I've always written in like narrative form, right?
Yeah.
So I ended up having to write kind of like scene summaries in paragraphs just so that I could get out like the whole vision I had in my head, and then I ended up converting that into script so that I could just have the words and figure out what was going to go on each page.
No, that's interesting. So what was the challenges of that, of going from the narrative prose to the screenplay? Because
Um
I personally haven't done that. Well, I tried once. I tried to convert a chapter into like a scene. It didn't work out too well.
yeah. It works not too bad for me because I am self-illustrating. So when I do write like panel 1, I'm going to put this, I don't have to put a ton of detail. Like if I were hiring an illustrator, it would have to be super 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 detailed. And then another thing I do is I take a playing card, just like that you play cards with, and I draw out a bunch of those onto a page. And then as I'm writing the script, I kind of sketch out a couple of ways that I could have that page. Um, and the other thing is with graphic novels, often when you flip the page, you're either flipping to another scene, or like the flip of a page can mean something in a graphic novel, right? So you kind of have to think out pacing too. So um, sometimes I need it to land on this page because the next page is going to be a different scene or a different location. So you have to think about like, okay, do I need to do like a single spread on that page just to get us to be able to flip? And it makes it harder to edit too, because if you're going to like extend a scene, you need to make sure you're extending it so that you don't mess up all your pages that you've already written.
Yeah. Damn.
Yeah, it's not simple, but
Yeah.
I mean, if you're doing it yourself, you'll just trek away at it and learn as you go, just like I did.
My God. Well, there's a couple things I want to talk about. So you seem like a huge fan of world building, right?
Hmm.
So how do you do that?
Um, so it started with like the landscape and like the location. But then part of it too is like the people there and how they live, right? So I have the advantage, I teach grade 7 when you learn ancient civilizations. So civilizations all have like certain things, like they all have either a form of money or trade. They all have a social structure. They all have
Religion.
religion, yeah. Public works, like how they get their water and their food and this and that. um, so some of those things just came automatically to mind when I was like picturing the world, and then other things I had to really think about, yeah, like things with religion. Like I'm not religious, so I was like, how do I make up a religion for my story when it's not going to be a key piece, but it needs to be there? So yeah, sometimes I'll just do like kind of brainstorms or like mind dumps and just kind of write down different ideas, research with what other people do, um, and a lot of my own values and just like my own thoughts just seep into it for sure.
I do 100% of my world building in my head, to the what's the word? I can't even think about it. To the annoyance of my friends, because that's all I just have word vomit when I have like a really good like idea. It's like, oh, dude, no, but pay attention. No,
Yeah.
no, I know I told you last week about this, but no, I got a way new idea. I had like 4 words to it. Whole different story now. But the whole element thing, how do you kind of go about it? And the whole, even the religion aspect, couldn't you just make it they would pray to whatever, the fire people would pray to the sun, earth to whatever, I don't know, a stone monument,
Hmm.
God knows.
Yeah. So I ended up deciding that the the planet that has like these 4 dimensions, um they have orbiting them, their sun is stuck in one area. It doesn't orbit anymore. The sun is just in one area.
Oh shit.
and the moon continues to orbit.
Oh shit.
But because the sun is stuck in one area, the other side of the world is always nighttime. So it only ever gets some light when the moon comes over there. So I decided that the moon would be a good point for the religion, because lots of religions look to the sky and create their stories that way. So in their religion, it's kind of worshiping the moon in a sense. And then in like the fire world or the fire dimension, I wanted there to kind of be like a creepy kind of like area, like just like to put people on edge a little bit. So one area has like a circle that's entirely made out of fire with a couple of like pillars in it. So I've decided that that is going to be like their kind of place of worship. So people would go there when they were feeling like I don't know, they needed to repent, or they needed a new look on life, or they needed to kind of just like readjust things. And when they get there, there's travel between the dimensions. So when they get there, they can reach up to one of the pillars, and then it'll transport them into whichever dimension the world feels like those people need to get to.
Oof. Okay, and the parallel of it all is that they are like for example, the fire world would be like, Ontario, Canada, whatever, but just in flames, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
like it goes for every element that way.
Yeah, it's kind of like the only place that there's people living was the air dimension. And then because of like pollution and greed and commercialism, it's like their air is just like complete smog there. So the people have had to leave because otherwise everyone dies, right? So they've left. So the two main characters, they come from our world and they get transported into this other world. They don't know how to get there. And one of the first places they come across is that city that's abandoned. And they're like, crap, what happened here? Like, are there people okay? Like, what's going on? And then the premise of like the entire 3 books will be that they're going to fix the factory and shut it down so that because people even that have left the city, it's still one world. So eventually it's going to trickle and cause issues everywhere else, right? So it's like kind of a comment on our own situation here on Earth.
So they are all parallel but linked to one another.
Yeah.
So the pollution in the fire plane affects the airplane, and that's why it's all polluted. So
Yes.
where's the pollution coming from?
From the factories in their city, from just like
like there's a factory in each plane.
Just in air, but it can like spread amongst the other dimensions.
Hell yeah, that's really cool.
Thank you.
And with the do you have anything that there's like because if the sun was like stationary and the moon revolved around, there would have to be one point like at the very little sliver that just stays at night, right?
Exactly. Yeah, you're right.
No,
Yeah.
that's legit. That's legit. And you said this is a YA, right? So like you're gonna aim it for age frame a little bit higher than the A Life of a Shadow, right?
Yeah. So this one I'm hoping will be for like 12 and up.
And how you're aiming to kind of like graphically, like is it gonna be like blood? Are you like, like what level of like
No, it'll all
description?
be like, it'll looks wise, like there might be like a couple scenes, like I said, like the fire circle that's maybe like a little bit like creepy or on edge, but not like scary or anything like that. And no blood or gore or anything like that. There'll be like a swear word or two throughout. But yeah, I want to be able to use it in the classroom, so I need to make sure it's not too like edgy.
How do you feel about that about that, because if I can be honest, even with my most like mature concepts, I always try to kind of boil it down for like a more general audience. And even the whole curse word, I mean, I curse like a sailor, but for my writing, for the most part, I like to keep it kind of like PG, you know?
Yeah. Um, yeah, I don't know. I do for now. I'm okay with just making it for young adults, but yeah, in the future, I'd be interested if I end up writing another book that's for adults. I don't know.
Now, one thing that I'm kind of picking up on is that you kind of like different genres, right? So, like, could you see yourself writing horror?
Maybe. Yeah, actually, in I was thinking about doing NaNoWriMo last year.
Oh, right, right.
Um, I decided against it because I was like, that's crazy. I already have a couple projects on the go and I need to just stay focused. But when I was thinking about doing it, I was thinking about like a horror genre.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Cause what did you say? What was the movie? Oh, Inception. I don't know why you said Inception, but I was thinking Insidious, and I was like, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Although Inception is great. I just talked to a guy this week that was in Tenet, like that movie Tenet by Christopher Nolan. He was
Yeah.
like he was an extra, and I was like, oh yeah, I believe it, buddy. Then he sent me the picture of like him like next to the TV, like doing the exact same pose. I was like, whoa, dude, I didn't know people were actually doing that.
Oh
Yeah,
wow.
that's
Cool.
insane. It's weird how
Mhm.
like little claim to fames like that like just like pop up.
Yeah.
But man, I'm in love with the whole element thing. Like, do you also plan to have because you had the societal kind of points that you're talking about, the pollution and all that, kind of like taking care of like the planet that we live in, the plane that we live in, the dimension, whatever.
Mhm.
And then what type of character development do you want to focus on your characters? With on your characters, I should say.
Yeah. So I have like two main characters, they're roommates. So the one starts off very anxious and like having panic attacks. So her character development throughout is going to be kind of like through trying to save this world, she starts to gain confidence. She puts herself in situations that are scary and unique that she would have never pictured having to go through. And through that, starts to gain more confidence in herself. And um, she sees herself as like kind of like doing a good thing for this planet that she doesn't even belong to. So throughout, she starts to kind of become more confident and can deal easier with her anxiety and whatnot. And then the other character, he's more of like a happy-go-lucky kind of fella to like try to balance out the characters so that it's not all negative all the time. But his flaw is that he's quick to anger, so he has a few situations where he'll just like go off the rails. And he doesn't necessarily really trust strangers that he meets as quickly as she does. So throughout the story, he has to kind of start keeping his anger in check a little bit, and be willing to take risks on people that he doesn't know very well.
Where do you get your inspiration for the characters that you write or that you develop? Do you take them? Do you just make them for the environment, or do you kind of like take inspiration from the people in your life, from yourself?
Yeah, the girl with anxiety is definitely based off of me because I have anxiety and depression, and I think it's something that's really important to talk about. And it for me, it was definitely way worse when I lived in Toronto in the city, and now I've moved out to BC. And for me, I need to be out in nature. That's how I calm down. So that character is very much based off of me. And then the second character, I kind of like at first based him off my partner just because I needed to draw from real life.
Hmm.
But I didn't want him to like actually be based off of my partner. That was just like a starting point. So I've kind of, that one has just kind of developed a little bit on its own and a little bit based off of what I needed for the story. So like I said, I needed more of a positive person in there for her to bounce off of. So that was a huge inspiration for him. Um, Yeah, it took me a really long time, probably a year or two, to get more of a character nailed down for him. Um, and so I've kind of made him a bit of a country boy, who's just moved to the city. And so he's has more of like a small town mentality, and yeah, I don't know. And then some of my other characters, I find like when I'm first trying to develop a character, so like the people from the city, like there's lots of different characters because I need like a hierarchy of social class and like a variety of people. So sometimes it, like, I kind of started it based off of a job. So what's their job? Why are they part of that city or part of that town? And then I kind of drew inspiration from pop culture for different characters. So I'd have in mind like this one character is going to be kind of like sassy and like kind of like hard edge. So I like thought about which other characters I know from television and things like that. So I thought about like Jessica Jones and have you ever seen Brooklyn Nine-Nine?
Yeah.
Like Rosa,
Yeah.
right? So I like pulled up some pictures of like these different types of characters. And then I started making notes like, okay, what is it that makes these characters who they are, so that I can kind of like figure out how to portray this person. And then I'll do the same thing when I'm drawing. They don't necessarily look like any of those characters, but it just like helps me kind of get into that headspace of the character I'm trying to portray.
That's awesome. And I'm picking up that it seem to like you're a fan of comedy, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you like to, because it's something that I feel not a lot of people like really, because I try to inject comedy into absolutely everything. Even if I'm writing the most like dramatic scene ever, it's gonna end and start with something kind of like funny. I don't know why.
Yeah.
It's just how our brains like kind of work. Do you have a favorite comedian?
A favorite comedian? I don't, I'm more of like, I don't really listen to a whole lot of like stand-up comedy. But I'm more so like yeah, like actors. My
Or a
favorite
TV
would
show?
probably be Michael Cera.
He
He's my
is great, honestly.
and he's so awkward and I just love it. Yeah, and you know what? That's true. I do like comedy. I'm not very funny though. So like I would love to be able to insert some more comedy into my dialogue. But that's one thing I'm definitely struggling with. So hopefully my editor can help me with that a little bit. But my sense of humor is like dad humor. So it's just like puns and things like that.
Yeah, but that is pretty funny though. It makes you roll your eyes a little bit, but it's pretty funny.
Yeah, I think it's funny.
I mean, honestly, I don't know you that well, and I picked up on the humor already, so I think it might not be like crazy developed yet, but I definitely think your writing has to have a little something in it, which is awesome. Which is I gotta kudos honestly.
Thanks.
And another thing that I kind of picked up on is because I'm really interested in me. Did you always live in a city? Were you born in a city and then you moved out?
I grew up in a small town. Yeah, and then I moved to the city when I was going to university. Yeah, which I really liked when I first moved. And just like the independence, and like I was younger, so I enjoyed like the nightlife and things like that. But it was very like hectic, and to go anywhere you have to take buses, so it's like an hour or two to get here and there, and it would just feel like, and that actually works its way into it a little bit too, like, okay, I'm going to go to work and get groceries, but that involves getting onto a bus, going to the subway, getting to work, then going onto a different subway, going to the store, and then like onto another bus and back home, right? So like it's not as simple as where I live now, where it's just like I can drive 10 minutes down the road, grab some groceries from this store where I know where everything is, because I live in kind of a small town again. But yeah,
honestly, it just because I have the exact opposite. I grew up in cities,
mm-hmm.
and I get anxiety when I'm in the country or like I'm in like quiet. Yeah, because it's too silent, you know?
It's too quiet. Yeah.
Yeah, like my apartment in Boston, I lived, no bullshit, right in front of the fire department of like on Huntington Ave.
Yeah.
And I would
It's
sleep, I
like,
would sleep through them like getting out. I would completely sleep through it. I would just tune it out. Just like
yeah,
it's like almost white noise. It's almost relaxing after a while.
for sure.
And
Yeah.
then when you like get to like complete silence, it's like, yo, nah, I'm gonna get murdered tonight. No one's gonna find my body for a week.
Yeah. I've had those moments too. Yeah.
I don't know. It's just like insane paranoia. And the thing is that like when I talk to people that are kind of on more on your end that like always live in country, they always tell me the exact opposite. Like, nah, dude, what about countries? You can get murdered. Like, you know, the probability of murder in cities, like they're hitting you with like all different like
Yeah.
probabilities and percentages. It's like, all right, I guess.
But you're right. There's always people around here you scream in a city.
Yeah, I don't know. I almost feel more comfortable in like mass, you know,
Yeah.
in like a group of people than like not. I don't know. Different people, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting on the way that like characters get developed, because I like that you put like an emphasis on like not just your main characters, but like I guess you would call them secondary characters because they're not main characters, but I think every character is like pretty significant in the story.
Yeah, they have to be. Otherwise, why are they there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't think, especially in comedy. Comedy's a great thing of this, that like iconic roles will be like, you know, that one actor that comes in for one, like what's that movie? We Are 40 or something like that, or like This Is 40.
Yeah.
And it has like Melissa McCarthy in it. She's there in one scene, and it's
I
the
love her.
funniest. Yeah, it is the funniest scene in that movie. She is there
Yeah.
for one scene. It's like 3 minutes, and it's like her, and it's her improv actually. Like I love watching the behind the scenes of that, because like the actors, because you know how like movies are set that it shows like the actor's face and then like the person actually talking.
Yeah.
When it shows like the people that she's talking to, they're like dying, but like making like trying their hardest to keep their like head like,
Yeah.
you know, so like they're like crying and like, you know, like mucus is coming out, but they're just keeping their head as solid as they could. God, I love that type of stuff. Do you
Yeah.
do you think you'll ever try to kind of pursue the production side of it, like especially that you seem to be like such a visual kind of like conceptual person? Do you ever think that you'll kind of go, and you already started with the screenplay, do you ever think if somebody approaches you about making The Life of a Shadow, with high probability, let's be honest, into like a Netflix or like an Amazon type of thing, do you ever think you would just kind of like, is that something that you would look forward to?
For sure. If someone wanted to do that, that would be awesome. That would be like the most perfect like feedback, that people loved it, right? Yeah, that would be really cool.
Do you think that you would go in the route of live action, or do you think that you would want it to get animated?
Oh. Um I think live action would be pretty cool. It would be really neat to see how they would bring the dimensions to life rather than just like illustrated wise.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that would be sweet.
And I gotta say, because I mean, I'm a huge fan of world building. So like the moment you started going off on your world, I was just like, you know, let my mind go. So one thing that really picked up on was the whole professions. How did you answer that question of the professions? Like, what would be the profession of the fire plane versus the profession of the earth plane, of the airplane? Well, like what are the difference? What are they doing?
um, well, so from the city, only like maybe like 400 people have survived. Like everybody else has died from the pollution. So I kind of just started with, okay, what does a civilization need? So you need like food and water. So you have like somebody in charge of agriculture, someone in charge of livestock or fishing, and somebody in charge of like potable water. And then there's like the historian, because my characters show up and they're like, okay, where are we? Like, what's happening here? They need someone to tell them like kind of a factual history of the place. And then they talk to other people and get like the different opinions of the history, right? Because everybody has their different perspective.
Damn, you are good.
That ties into our curriculum as well in grade 7 and 8.
Yeah, what is that? First versus primary versus secondary source, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then there's there's a healer because you need like some sort of doctor or something. And there's oh, I have it right here, like on here. And then the leaders. So the people in charge, which are basically the people who had run the factory. It was a family business, so the remaining people that survived from that family are still at the top. Yeah. And then there's like, so they would have done like fishing in the water dimension because there's obviously more water there and it's cleaner water and things like that. And logging in the fire dimension, which kind of ties into our logging here and all the forest fires that happen throughout the summers.
Slash and burn agriculture.
Yeah, exactly.
Huh. My God, you really have some really interesting elements in there. Did you ever take a like psychology class or something like that?
I have. Yeah, I've taken intro to psych.
Huh. Just like the that's one of my favorite things about writing, when people not only introduce like a cool world, but also introduce kind of like a cool way to view the world. Because that whole thing of like telephone history is one of my favorite things ever. That like you can hear it from one point of view as like, oh, this is what happened, and you ask literally the dude or gal or dog right next to them, and it's a completely different story of the same exact location.
Mm-hmm. So what about you when you're writing? Like, how do you do world building or character building?
So I'll get like an inception in my head of just a random thing. Like I'll watch like a TV show that'll kind of like introduce like a cool idea. Great example. I just recently got a story that I really really like because I'm a huge fan of, I'm a huge history fan, which is one I noticed that thing about like ancient history. That was like one of my favorite classes, the only class I ever paid attention to when I was in middle school.
Yeah.
And I had never gotten into feudal history. Like the whole king aspect of everything never interested me.
Mm-hmm.
But then I'm Dominican. So like the whole like conquering of Hispaniola and Dominican Republic and Central America, that's like directly like my ancestor type of stuff.
Yeah.
So for the first time, I started like watching like kind of historical pieces and realizing that as that kingdom and castle stuff was happening over here, we're getting rocked on this side. So it was one of those things of like, oh, I never really paid attention to how like comparative history could be. Like while this is happening over here, this is happening on the other side. And then I never, like you said that you grew up with Harry Potter. My thing was Percy Jackson. Magic, for whatever reason, it never like got into my head as much. You know what I mean? But, and I guess when I got older, I started thinking about why I didn't like magic as much.
Yeah.
And then it was kind of because it wasn't rooted in anything that could really grasp. So I put like all those ideas together, and then I just built this idea of like, oh, well, what would happen if like the start of voodooism in Central America happened because like you had a group of people that were chilling, you know, on an island doing whatever. And of course they had their own little strife. As you said, humans are still humans, right? So like, you know, one tribe wanting a little more land than another one, you know, this side has more cows than that one, you know.
Yeah.
Always something, right? But for the most part, they were chilling, right? And then these people come over and it just goes from chilling to like, yo, I didn't even know humans were doing this type of stuff. You know what I mean? Like, this is outrageous. And then and then logically thinking like, who would be left of that? Because if you were to come to a land, the first thing you're going to knock out are the men, anybody strong-willed, and anybody that's like too strong to kill, slavery. So the people that would be left over would be women and children that kind of like ran away, right?
Yeah.
So I'm kind of thinking of how that would progress, and I was like, oh, maybe that would be the start of voodooism. You have these women that just like lived the most traumatic thing you can imagine, and are continuing to live through it because they're having to see their country and their land just like, you know, the little monument that they did to pray to the wind god is now being destroyed, and now they're telling them that they have to convert to this new god that's doing this out of love, but all they see is like hatred. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that psychologically would just like make people go crazy and kind of turn to stuff that they don't really understand just to get some type of level up. So I developed that as the start of voodooism, and then I just kind of like went off. It took me about like a week to like put it all together and like how the different like point of views would come together. But yeah, just really all in my mind.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, for whatever reason, I can remember plots that I made when I was 11 to the T that I never wrote down. But like I don't know, something that I learned like, 3 weeks ago just will fly through my mind. I don't know what it is. For whatever reason, it's just like plots and like world building is just like solid in my head. And I can just like at any point just like keep on like going with it. Because it really just like incepts all my mind, it just like gets like obsessive. And like it's the first
Yeah.
thing I wake up with, like last thing I go to sleep with. I'll like be writing notes of like at work or something I'm supposed to do, and like also I'll drift off into like drawing some type of sketch because I love drawing too. I'm just not
Hmm.
really that good at it. Uh, yeah, really, that's all world building is. I just kind of like get like lost in an idea or technology, then, which is why I love your idea that like it's not just building a cool like world, but it's also like how would that logically affect people,
Hmm.
psychologically, how would that affect society. That drives me just as much as anything else, which is like why like movies, shows like Black Mirror, uh,
Hmm.
books like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, things like that are my favorite works because it's just like, I don't know, it's like world building to like such a degree, but it's like brevity. It's not like
Yeah.
long-winded paragraphs describing like the stroke of a leaf. It's just like one little one little thing that just blows your mind, like, oh my god, what?
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but he talks
No,
about,
not yet.
oh, you got to. He talks about this engine called a probability drive. It's one sentence in the entire book, and he describes it that like this, the drive of it, it maps out the placement of every atom in the universe, then flips in between all of them until it gets to the atom that you want to be at.
Wow.
So let's say that you're like in Toronto, it goes to the atoms of like, you know, the opposite side of the universe, the flame
Yeah.
dimension, the earth dimension. It goes everywhere
Hmm.
until it gets to, New York.
Right.
So like how he would describe it was that the people would like turn into fishes and frogs, like just like random things that they would go in between the dimensions and flip, and then they
Hmm.
would just land.
Oh, cool.
Oh my god, blow, like I don't know, things like that. It's just one little sentence, and you would just lose your mind in it.
Yeah. So it sounds like you have a very creative mind. Like it just gets the best of you. It's just like always going.
Yeah, I have a lot of anxiety because of out of it. I mean, call it anxiety because it's like you like feel like you never sleep and everything. I feel it's honestly great, but
Hmm.
it is a little like stressful because you always feel like there's like something that you didn't do.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Unreal, you know what I mean? That you
Yeah.
just like wake up, it's like, I could have done a little more last night, or I should have been doing a little bit more. Even when you're watching TV, it's just like I should be doing something more.
Yeah.
But I guess it's like to and fro of life, Everything is like, I always say that every emotion has its like twin,
Yeah.
Everything has its both back and forth with it.
Hmm. The
Um,
yin and yang.
yeah, definitely.
Hmm.
Now, kind of going off with the whole element thing, do you think you ever? Well, you already said you're gonna have that into a three-parter.
Yeah.
Do you think you have like any other ideas stem from that concept? Like you have like that's gonna be a one like a three-parter there, but do you think you're gonna
Hmm.
make like other three-parters or?
There might be. Yeah. I've I have ideas for how I could kind of like leave the last book a little bit open ended so that if I did want to continue with those characters or with that world, so that I have a couple ideas on how I could continue that series if I want to.
That's awesome. So when
Hmm.
you world build to the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see that's the type of stuff that I do too. Because I can't even start an idea until it's fully like every middle and to the end. Because that way you would have the groove. You can just sit down. It's kind of like what you said. Like you don't have to constantly refer to something when like you're the illustrator and you just like
Yeah.
lay it out. That's how it goes, and everything
Hmm.
can just kind of go about it. Ah,
Yeah.
I love
But
that.
you're right. Like it did take me, it was a couple of years of just thinking before I had enough of the idea that I could actually start writing.
Yeah, and especially it takes because my very first idea, like the allegory of the end, I think it took me about 3-4 years to get it all together, and like a
Hmm.
lot of like different like little like edits and whatnot. Because you feel like especially with your first like idea, you take so much ideas of other stuff that you
Hmm.
almost like start realizing it's like not truly your own yet. So you have to
Yeah.
kind of like re-stitch it together to make sure that it, like seems out like it's like your own. Because there's no reason to every idea has been taken to some degree. So
Yeah.
you're not gonna, I mean, unlike the life of a shadow thing, I mean, I haven't heard anything like that, but for the most part, unless you have a phenomenal dad telling you cool stories like that, that kind of, most ideas are just
Yeah.
re-stitch
Everything's been
together.
invented,
Yeah,
sort of.
rehash. So you
Yeah.
can't really like beat yourself up too much on that. But there is a difference between like glaring things,
Hmm.
right? Like you have to really make sure that like elements and characters you add to your story are like within your own element and like all that stuff.
Yeah. Hmm.
So how did you feel writing a male character?
It's hard. Like even I got my partner to like read through it with me before I sent it to beta readers, and I'm like, okay, like I know there are moments here where I am like talking like a girl, like just like, or even like the internal narrative too, like the thinking, like putting way too many words and way too many emotions and this and that. Not to say that guys don't have emotions, but uh, it was definitely very obviously like a girl's perspective. So he helped me kind of like rehash it a bit, and like he'd be like, well, I wouldn't say that. That doesn't mean this character can't say it, but I wouldn't do it like that. But also there's some things that just like I pick up on that guys do. So like even the guy in the story, he's like walking on the edge of a volcano and he picks up a rock and throws it in. Cause like my partner and his friends, whenever there's water around, they're picking up rocks and throwing them in. Like they're adults and they're just like throwing the rocks in the water. So like things like that, I'm like, that's pretty like common among guys to do that. And even when he read that piece of it, he's like, oh, I would totally throw a rock into a volcano.
Or hitting each other.
Yes.
I'm 26 this year. My friend is 27. Best friend.
Yeah.
Known each other since 13. He is a father now. Our
Mm-hmm.
conversations are wildly different than they were before. We're talking about so
Yeah.
much more adult. They're like, oh, dude, my knee hurts when I do X, Y, Z now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yet, I'm telling you, if we're like standing next to each other, you just feel like a jab from like one another. Either I'm doing it first or he's doing it, and then that's it. It's like a 5-minute battle of like, oh, come on, dude, stop doing it. Come on, stop.
Yeah.
And the moment you stop, dude, come on. It's all day. It's all day. It doesn't matter. We'll do that till we're 58.
Yeah.
God, yeah, I really do love that because I feel the exact same way. When I try to write a female character, my first graphic novel, titular character, Banshee Cannot Die. Banshee is huge spoiler alert. God damn it. It's so hard to like contain spoiler alerts sometimes. You forget what point. Well, who cares? I think I was like spoiled that like 9 times throughout this podcast. But it's a female pirate. And like the reason her inception was because like I felt like I never saw true female villains. Like every time there's a female villain, they always like try to like rehash it. It was like, oh
Yeah.
no, but like she had a real childhood, like type of stuff like that. But like I really want to show just pure like villainous from this character. And then
Mm-hmm.
I'll try to win you over in like volume 2, like like season 2,
Yeah.
whatever how you want like thing. But for the most part, I really want you to feel like vile. It's almost like
Mm-hmm.
the exact opposite of what you feel in Khaleesi in Game of Thrones. How like
Yeah.
as you're watching her, you're like, hell yeah, this is the lady.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I want the exact opposite. Like, yo, this woman, when are they gonna catch her? Like, Jesus
Yeah.
Christ.
Kill her off already.
Yeah, exactly. Like
Yeah.
and I have to say, I love that aspect of it. Like one thing that I'm loving is especially I feel like everybody wants to write a really smart character. That's everyone's like go-to of like writing a character that's like the smartest person in the room.
Yeah.
Can handle guns, can fight. Just perfect at everything. But there's something really sincere about dumb characters, and I haven't like noticed it until like this year.
Yeah.
Like some of my favorite, like speaking about the whole elemental thing, Avatar, right, and then Sokka. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
that whole like his. It's not that he's not heroic, but it's just like his like naivety. Is that the word? Naive.
Naivety. I
Naivety.
don't know how you say it, but I know what you're talking
Yeah.
about.
I mean, we can make up words. We're authors. Shakespeare did it
Yeah.
all the time. Like that whole just I don't know. There's something just so sincere that you can put so much like empathy in a character like that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever think you'll develop characters like that? Do you think you developed characters like that already when you were building like the whole like what 5 levels of city and society that you did for Element of the 5 Torontos, Fire Toronto, Earth Toronto?
Do I have characters in it that are, what's your question?
Like did you play around with that type of like character development, like more dim-witted characters or just like kind of like the give and toe.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's different like yeah, there I don't know. I haven't thought too much about like their their smarts yet. But there's one character who is like, you know, Puck from A Midsummer's Night Dream,
Yeah.
and how he's like kind of like a sprightly like little like guy, like just like
Yeah.
kind of like weird and like gnarly, but also like likable, but also like you're not sure if you should trust him.
Yeah.
So I have a character like that, which has been fun to play around with. And even same thing, like when he speaks, I'm trying to play with if he should be speaking in rhyme or like kind of have like a rhythm to his speech. But then it's also hard to do that without it sounding like unnatural, right? Like, so yeah, there's definitely that fine line of playing around with that.
Oh, that's funny. I wrote a short story one time that just naturally all the dialogue that I was writing for one character rhymed. So by the
Mhm.
fourth paragraph of writing the dialogue, I just made it a thing. Instead of like trying to
Yeah.
re-edit it, I just made one character like make fun of the other character. Like say it's like how does a person that not like music rhyme with every single thing they say? How does
Yeah.
that? um God, I don't know. There's something about world building that I just love the most. I mean, you talked about it in Harry Potter, and I've only seen the movies. I'm a quack, but I've the people that have read Harry Potter, the people that like kind of when I ask about world building, they always reference Harry Potter. Do you have like is that a lot of your inspiration, or like where do you get a lot of your inspiration from, like world building and everything from?
You just cut it out for a second there because of my internet. But yeah, Harry Potter definitely has really good world building. Um, I think we're frozen again.
Oh no, now it just hit me. Technical.
There we go.
Okay.
um, yeah, I agree. Harry Potter definitely has like that world building to it, and even just like in terms of like the words she chooses, like she'll make up words, like muggle, who's like somebody without magic, like
She made
just
up that word?
yeah.
Gangsta, bro. I thought that was, I don't know, like Celtic or something.
Oh, well, maybe, I don't know. um but yeah, and just like when you read the books, like it almost feels like coming home. Like that's how I felt with the Harry Potter books. Like, you know, you're excited to get from Harry Potter's house to back to the school because of all the magic that happens there, right? Like, you know, the moving pictures and the moving stairwells and things like that. Like, just she didn't simplify things. She in each book too, you can see like she's built more and more into it.
That is awesome, man. I really need to read that book. God, I feel like I'm so lazy. Do you have anything like what was the last book that you read that really like was like, ooh, this is good?
Ooh. That would be, it's by an indie author. Her name's Jillian Webster.
Shout out.
Yeah, I like tell everyone about her. I just love her book. It's called The Weight of a Thousand Oceans, and it's the first in a trilogy. So the second book's coming out in June, and it's like a dystopian book, of a girl who lives in our world like a couple hundred years from now, when our ocean levels have risen. There's hardly any people around, and like there's no more electricity or internet or any of that. And like she's done so much research that like it's all very realistic. I think it's kind of fantasy though. But I mean the world building itself is extremely like on point. It's exactly how our earth is going to be in a while.
Hell yeah.
And also like the way she writes it, you know how we were talking before about how like the amount of detail, if you go into like the amount of detail in a leaf, it's just like, okay, like get over it. Like she has like exactly the right amount of detail. Like it's very uh detailed with like really specific words. Like she uses a wide range of vocabulary, and I love it because it's not like, oh, and then there was a tree. Like she will describe the tree without you even realizing that she's done that. And then you can picture exactly what's going on. So, like in the book, there's a dog. And I've never had a dog before, but the number of times when I was reading this story, I was like looking around, like, where'd your dog go? And I'm like, oh yeah, she's in the book. I have to keep reading and see if the dog's nearby.
Good
Like
Lord.
it was just like really, really, really well done.
Oh God. Yeah, I have two dogs. I yeah, I don't know why, but that made me think how much like character development like changes. You know what I mean? When I was like 8, I was deathly scared of dogs, and now I like couldn't think of living without my dogs.
Yeah.
So weird how things change.
Hmm.
It kind of goes into like the whole element of like world building and like how you said how much the world changes and like God. Now you seem to be kind of like very like you have certain ideas you want to get out. Is there anything else you kind of want to like target in like books coming out? Like so this one you did kind of like a pollution thing.
Hmm.
With the life of a shadow was more it was kind of like self well not really self-help, like what's the word I'm looking for? Uh
Like confidence and like
yeah,
family love and things like that.
yeah. So what do you think there's anything like in your pipeline that you want to kind of focus on next or focus on in the future?
I don't know. I think like the environment and mental health are probably like my two most important things like over the last like 5 or 10 years of my life. So um those are my focuses for now, but I don't know. Maybe something else will come my way later.
Man, I weirdly enough, I really like that because for example, like I'm a really huge fan of like genre shifting. And so is another author that I have, Tim Heath, phenomenal. He does like, but for as much as he switches between like comedy and thriller and all these things, his through
Mhm.
line is always thriller, and mine is always like sci-fi. It'd be
Yeah.
really interesting as like as you go, if your through point would always be that pollution aspect. Like if you make a
Yeah.
horror based on like the kind of like the horror of pollution, like maybe you can make it like and like an allegory for like the pollution, like you make like a fire character, like a sludge type of thing.
Hmm.
Because even when you were talking about, I love the idea of the whole elements having like a pollution thing. Like, does each elemental plane have their own form of pollution? Like, does the water thing have like water pollution? Does the flame have like sludge or what is it that thing? Industrial waste. There we go. Like,
No, it's primarily in the air dimension, but there are things like in the fire dimension, uh, like there's been a forest fire, so there's remnants of the forest. And in the water dimension, they used to do fishing there, but not anymore. But they're like their logging or their fishing camps and their boats are still there, just like us humans would do. We'd just leave it there, like no use cleaning it up.
yep.
The earth will take care of it.
God, you know what? There's certain things that I just love. I honestly have never thought about that. Like it is so weird to think about that we'll build a log cabin in the middle of the woods and then never think of like tearing it down. We're just like, all right, bet we're just gonna go over there now.
Yeah.
Never ever, and you'll just find it abandoned however X amount of years later. And I guess nature does take everything over, but I guess from a conscious standpoint, it would make sense to kind of take it apart, huh? Just never thought about it before. Huh.
Yeah. I don't know. I'd like to just go live in that cabin then.
All abandoned and whatnot.
As long as
Honestly,
there's no rats.
insects are my thing. Like you find like one of those like barnyard spiders. Nah, son.
Ooh,
Can't
yeah.
do it. You don't find those in the cities. You see, that's why you stay in the city.
True.
Because we have huge rats that will knock those out.
Yeah.
Um, well, I usually always kind of like to end the podcast on kind of like the inspirational like content thing. So what are your favorite like movies and like TV shows that you would like draw your inspiration from? It could be from like back in the day since you were a kid, or it could be like recent stuff like that you've been like watching currently.
Yeah. Um, well, I guess this counts. David Suzuki. He writes incredible books and has like a number of documentaries about nature. So as I've been writing Element, I've been like reading a lot of him and watching his documentaries just to learn some facts that I can kind of either build into my book or even go the opposite way and build out of my book. That's definitely probably the hugest influence for the story. Inception, like I said, in terms of world building, and Harry Potter, you know, and then so some characters that I've kind of based off of Melissa McCarthy that you mentioned earlier. Yeah, one of my characters was like originally going to kind of be based off of her, but I think she doesn't look anything like her, and but it's more like that like bubbly kind of personality. Yeah, that's probably about it, I think. I know a lot of people have drawn connections, or like some of my students that have read it have drawn connections to like Airbender and things like that. I've never seen that, but supposedly maybe there's some connections to that.
Well, probably just like the whole elemental basis, but for the most part, do you have like martial arts in it or anything like that in your book?
No, but the second main character, the guy, he's like a boarder, like a snowboarder and a skateboarder. Oh, actually, so I've been, Tony Hawk Pro Skater.
Yeah.
That was the only game growing up that I beat the whole thing in like Nintendo 64, Xbox, or whatever it was. So they actually just re-released that game last summer. So I bought a copy of that, and that's been helpful because for the character who's skateboarding everywhere, I need to know some of the tricks. So I've gotten back into that and like learning how to do kick flips and rocket airs and all that.
Man, you are living the dream. I've been thinking about doing that for a while. You remember that game, Ty the Tasmanian Tiger?
No.
No one does. Damn it. Nobody does. I feel like I live in like the Mandela effect. I try to talk to anybody about it. They're like, nah, dude, never heard of that. Man, that was the game. I never got to beat it because like my GameCube, like, it was one of those things that like I was weird. I was always into like the TV show games, like the Fairly Odd Parent games, and like like the movie games, like the Incredible 1 and 2 games. Oh my God, that was life. I don't know. That was a weirdo. And Pokemon, obviously.
And Mario.
No, I mean, goes without saying.
Yeah.
Mario Sunshine, you ever beat that game?
No.
Me either, man. I suck at games. I'm telling you. I just I can never beat it.
Time consuming though. I don't know how people game all the time. It takes a lot of hours to make progress.
Especially streamers. I mean, the amount. I mean, these. I guess the podcasts are pretty long and like how long the conversations are, but like production time is nothing. What these streamers for video games must be doing. Yo.
Yeah.
Like outside of the little cube of like that they have, their bed must be right outside of it because that's all they must be doing. It's unreal. I mean, God bless them. It's awesome that like we live in like in an age that people can really truly follow their passions in like such a way and just like market everything. Although I guess that the marketing is kind of like the annoying part for the most part, but still awesome. Better than like the alternative,
Yeah.
Now, question that I gotta ask: the tattoo on your finger, is that from Destiny or is that something else?
No, actually, like kind of supposedly, I don't know if it's true. Supposedly, it means create your own reality in Viking. This is what the internet says. So I don't know if it's true, but when I saw that, that was like kind of what I was doing with the Element, the graphic novel, right? I was kind of creating my own reality and trying to process how we're taking care of the earth, and it's kind of been like healing for me to create my own world where I can just like tackle that. So and yeah, that's what it means.
Man, I love that so much. I feel like that might be like down the drain of like a tattoo I eventually, because I've been looking for a Valhalla type of tattoo.
Yeah.
I just didn't know at what degree, because I love the whole Viking aspect, just like, how they were able to conquer the entire world off of just a thought. They were just like, nah, we don't die. Everyone's like, nah, but everybody dies. They're like, nah, but we don't die.
Yeah.
When we die, we go and see our homies. And this never ends. Everyone's like, nah, but we die, but we don't. And he just beat the entire world because of that. My God, humans are something else, huh?
Yeah.
Uh, do you ever think that you'll turn any of like the illustrations and graphics that you made into tattoos? Like, do you ever
Oh
think you'll
yeah,
have? Man,
for sure. Like, this is the very original logo for Element. It's been redeveloped a few times, but I would love to get the current version of this as a tattoo, like on my arm.
Can you like zoom in on that real quick? Hell yeah. And what is that, like a leaf flowing in the wind for wind? No, no, that's water.
Yeah, so this one, it's the water dimension is like all like winter, so it's kind of like a frozen water droplet. Yeah, and then air, fire, and earth.
And that looks like the tree of life from the what is that? What is it? What the Vikings call it? Mjolnir, whatever. Vidrisil.
Yeah.
Whatever. Man, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm on the same boat. Like, there's a lot of stuff, but it just feels like one of those like. Only thing that I don't go with it is that like somebody would be like, "Oh, where you get that from?" I was like, "Oh, that's my book. That's a tattoo
No,
of
but
my
then it's
book
like
on my
free.
skin."
Not free, but it's advertising for yourself, right? Then they'd be like, "That is so cool," and now I want to buy your book.
Now you're thinking. You see, because I'm horrible at marketing too. Now you're thinking.
Just put it somewhere where they'll see it, and there you go. Just
go to the beach. It's like, like -2 degrees. Like, nah, but I'm taking my shirt off. Why? Yeah. Not because it's a full back thing. I can't really do this without. Oh my God, that's awesome. And what about I gotta ask before we cut out. What about travel? Do you travel a lot? And do you think, or not even travel a lot, but do you would what's the word? Whatever. Do you like to travel? Is it something that you think influences your writing?
For sure. Yeah, I do love to travel. I lived in England for 6 months. I taught there for a little while. And while I was there, did some traveling. We did a road trip around Scotland for a week, just in a little Volkswagen Golf. So actually one of the original like vision I had for Air kind of came from Stirling Castle there. But over time I've like changed it. It's not going to work because it was kind of like in a cemetery where that would kind of be like Catholic Christian oriented, which isn't in my book, so I've had to rework it. But yeah, some of the places that I've visited have definitely kind of influenced more so like the landscapes and things like that. So I'm looking forward to when we can travel again.
Yeah, I know. It's such an annoyance, everything that's going on with that. But you know what? I actually had the same type of problem when I was developing, because I like my book is in a whole different planet. So like even when I talk right now, I say like I wouldn't consider myself religious, but because of my upbringing, I always say my God, Jesus Christ, things like that.
Yeah.
So in my writing, that just naturally happens as kind of like a thing to say. But like I think that was one of the hardest in the practices of like when you like things like that and you have to like take it away or curve it away.
Yeah.
Or like when there's like a simple idiom, it's like you realize like, oh wait a minute, they wouldn't understand that idiom. Or like even like certain words, you like questions like, oh, like the development, how would that how would they still have that? God.
Yeah, even like so my two characters come from Toronto and land on this planet. So I've had to figure out, okay, why is it they can understand each other? Right? Because you would assume that they would speak a different language.
Ooh. Yeah, I didn't even think of that one. My God. This is the best thing ever. Honestly. There's no better.
It's been really great talking to you. We've had a really great conversation.
Oh yeah, thank you. And of course, The Life of a Shadow, pre-order it now. I'm telling you, well worth it. I'm gonna share the screen now so we can show people your webpage and everything.
Sure.
So here's the Instagram, all the posts and whatnot, and all your. And I love these little drawings. And then we have the link tree. Make sure to follow that. And then The Life of the Shadow pre-order. So again, make sure to check this out. Brittany Leonard. I was about to mess it up again. I'm telling you.
No worries.
I'm on a different one. And then if I can get this last link right here, bang. And then there's the website. Now, walk me through the website. You know, there's the newsletter, obviously. Make sure that people go ahead and get the newsletter. You know, you have blogs, right? People can follow through and kind of like read up to get a further depth of your progress in the books, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then I try to keep up to date, like any books I'm reading or recommendations I have. Um, and I have my Instagram linked too, because I'm most active on Instagram. That way it's kind of updating on there as well. And then I do have a couple little sections of like some eco tips, because obviously I'm passionate about that. Um, but yeah, it's been a work in progress, that website, but I'm happy with where it's at now. And yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. So, what is the future for Brittany Leonard?
Well, I'm hoping I can get this. I've loved your feedback on Element. Like that just warms my heart, that you're so excited about that. So I'm hoping I can finish the first book of it in the next year or two.
And I will definitely be in line. Well, virtually in line. I'll get a copy. You understand what I'm
Yeah.
saying? God. And again, when you drop that, I would love to have you back on and kind of promote that, you know?
Sure, that'd be great.
And for the people listening, when is the final release date? When can people get The Life of a Shadow? When is it dropping?
April 6th. So unfortunately, Amazon won't let you pre-order the paperback, but I promise it will be up for April 6th. Yeah.
April 6th. Pick it up. I'm telling you, well worth it. I mean, just everything that we've talked about. I am genuinely excited and like interested in like your career path, just the way that you're developing. And it's like I can't remember at what point of the episode you said, I think it was earlier, that you just said that like it's awesome to think how much you progress over time, and how awesome to think how much you're going to progress later on, and to think that you're already here now, how much better you'll be in like 5 or 10 years. So I could, especially that you got into it. So I mean, I've been drawing all my life and I'm not at your level yet. So that's kind of, I'm gonna look at myself in the mirror now and just like, take a long shower in the cold, kick a couple rocks when I'm outside, take a long drive and just look at the trees. My God. So what about final thoughts? Where can people find you again for the people listening?
Yeah, so the best way to connect with me is Instagram. So it's at author Brittany Leonard. And I'm totally happy. Like anyone who wants to message me, I love connecting with people on Instagram. Like I'm not a huge social media person, and I've just found Instagram to be like so positive. Like everybody on there, I never have any issues with anybody. I never hear of anyone else having issues. Like everyone's just so happy and polite. And yeah, I just love connecting with other people and seeing what they're up to and hearing what their interests are. So that would be the best place to connect with me.
And then of course there is the website and everything. And you're also a teacher. So do you have like any editing services that you plan to release, or anything that you have currently going on, or anything in that regard?
Ooh, I don't, but that would be a really good idea, because English is like the main subject I teach. So
you should. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Especially that editing is such a like major thing. It's actually like funny. I remember when I got into that whole editing aspect and just started seeing the rates of what they charge. I'm over here like, wait a minute. Why am I writing then? Obviously the money's in editing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I gotta dump all this money on the chance that I maybe make my money back off it. Jeez,
yeah,
man, I need to get into editing. That's where what's the phrase? It's so weird. English has become my main language, but yet words still slip from me all the time. I barely speak Spanish. I don't know where it comes from. But final thoughts, final comments, and also, is that a bear or a dog on your arm?
it's a cougar.
What? Oh crap! I see it with a flower design. Look at this. It looks just like this.
Yeah. Awesome.
Oh, that's awesome.
Cool.
Yeah. So, final thoughts, final comments.
Yeah, Life of a Shadow. I think it's for all families, for a wide range of kids. It's follows her from an infant right up to adulthood. So anyone in your life who needs a little reminder that they're loved, or kids that are learning about shadows and want to learn to make some shadow puppets. I think it's a book that's for a wide range of people.
And again, where to follow everything and get up to date. And again, join the newsletter, support the author. I'm telling you, well worth it. AuthorBrittanyLeonard.com. Amazon links are going to be there to pre-order the books. And I'm telling you, if you're not amped for Element like I am, you need to be. You need to go, look in the mirror, splash some water in your face, re-listen to the end of the podcast, send me $20 just cause, be a friend. and then pre-order and get ready and amped for Element as I am. This is the end of the podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming on. And do you have anything that you want to say to the people? Anything to end the podcast on?
I would say, you know what? Anybody out there who wants to try to do something like this, go for it. We live in the age that knowledge is at your fingertips, and all it takes is a little practice, a little bit of learning and research, and yeah, anything's possible.
You heard it here, folks. I'm telling you, within 5 years, it's gonna be like, how did this woman even accept to go? How was that even happening? How is this like woman that has like 5-7 books out, 3 shows on Amazon? How did this woman talk to Angel? Why did that happen? And it all started right here 3 years ago. She just decided to do it. I'm telling you, animal. Never heard something so inspirational. So this is the end of the podcast. AR's Tales, aka the A.R.T podcast. I am A.R. Mirabal. Brittany Leonard, absolute pleasure. We will check up on you next Wednesday. Later.